Good afternoon and welcome to Indiana Law TV. My name is Cindy Speaker. We have with us today in the studio Carl Brizzi of Carl Brizzi Law.
Thanks for having me, and it's great to be here and looking forward to talking about the issues of self-defense, because I think people want to know, they have a right to know, and they should know when and how they can defend themselves.
Absolutely. Well, let's start off with a clip from the Trayvon Martin incident, and then you can comment on that.
Based on what you saw, and again, you didn't see a struggle, do you believe it was self-defense on Zimmerman's part?
I do not.
Why?
Originally, I didn't believe it was self-defense because what we saw when we walked out on the porch. If it was self-defense, why was he on Trayvon's back?
George Zimmerman says he shot 17-year-old Trayvon Martin in self-defense. That claim has renewed the debate over Florida's so-called stand your ground law, which lets people use deadly force away from their homes if they think someone could seriously harm them.
Well, that incident certainly polarized a lot of America. What are your comments on that?
Well, sir, people have a lot of thoughts about how they thought that case, should have been decided. What we're going to talk about today are Indiana self-defense laws. And what's interesting is that Florida and Indiana have very similar laws when it comes to defending yourself and defending your property. And so the first thing we're going to talk about today is what you can and can't do inside your home. There's a thing called the Castle Doctrine, and it dates back to Old English common law that a man and a woman's home is their castle, and that they have every right to defend themselves and to defend their home against criminal intrusion. And in Indiana, what that means is that if somebody is breaking into your home, you do not have to flee before you start defending yourself. You can use force, you can even use deadly force if you reasonably believe that harm is going to come to you or a family member. So as an example, when I was prosecutor, I was confronted with a case where somebody who was, I believe, really high on some sort of drug was breaking into a house, actually climbing through the window, and the homeowner shouted several commands for the intruder to stop what they were doing. And when the intruder didn't comply and was was actually in the house, the homeowner was legally justified in shooting him.
Wow. So Indiana is unique. It has a unique law as compared to other parts of the United States.
Yeah, well, the laws are very similar to Florida and other states, but we certainly do have a very, what I would call, robust notion of self-defense. In fact, a couple of years ago, the Supreme Court redefined the law in a way that didn't sit well with Hoosiers. And basically, it was understood that if even law enforcement, if they were executing a warrant that wasn't legal, if they were entering your home unjustly without cause, then a homeowner was allowed to use force to repel the law enforcement officer. And then the Supreme Court, in a very controversial opinion, basically said, no, we're not going to interpret the law to mean that. We don't think that it's a good public policy idea to allow citizens to repel law enforcement, even if they're justified.
Right.
So what the legislature did was basically change the law, and the former Governor Mitch Daniels, signed into law the fact that somebody is allowed to use force to repel an unlawful invasion into the home. And here's an example of that. I was reading a case where a constable was investigating reports of like a domestic disturbance.
Right.
And the person opened the door. There was nothing going on. There was no shouting. There was nothing. And he was having a conversation with the homeowner, and he stuck his foot in between the door jamb and the door, not allowing the homeowner to shut the door. So the homeowner basically used the door as a battering ram and it injured the constable. Constable calls for backup. They go in, they make the arrest, and his conviction was overturned, basically saying that, look, you had no cause to stick your foot into private property like that, and so the force used was reasonable.
Right.
And the homeowner was acquitted. Well, he was convicted, but it was reversed.
Okay, very interesting. Well, you mentioned the Castle Doctrine. Let me run a little clip from that.
Because a 2,000-pound car and 6 drunk men and they would have arrested me. When you are prosecuting law-abiding people for defending themselves against criminals, it's wrong and it has to be fixed. And the Castle Doctrine laws fix that.
What do you think about that?
Well, I have a couple of observations. One, I don't know where she's from, but I bet she's from Texas. And two, I wouldn't mess with her.
Right. I wouldn't either.
Right.
I wouldn't either.
I would not mess with that woman. So she's right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why a police officer would say that to her. Number one, that's certainly, if she is in fear for her life, and certainly if there are 6 drunk guys in a car, you're a single woman on the street, and they're threatening you with sexual assault, you can defend yourself, and you don't have to wait until they're on top of you, right? Before you. She didn't pull the trigger. She didn't actually use deadly force. She used the threat of deadly force.
Right.
And those two things are different. So good for her. And you know what? People absolutely need to be equipped with ways to defend themselves. I am a huge Second Amendment advocate, and whether it's a gun or something else, I believe that we all have a moral responsibility to be able to take on people who want to do us harm, right? It's great to have the police, but you can't rely on the police.
Right.
Because the police actually don't have a duty to get to you in time. If you call 911 and they get the wrong address or whatever happens, there's no responsibility on their part. You have to be able to defend yourself, take care of your family, take care of your loved ones.
Yeah. Well, you're a strong proponent of the right of individuals to defend themselves. And I think it's interesting, especially when you look at what's going on. And we were talking this morning about Donald Trump and just kind of the way that he's so vocal right now about a lot of things that are going on in the country. But how do you think this self-defense issue, is that a topic that's relevant right now? Is that something you're hearing a lot of talk about? And how do you think it's going to change based on whoever comes in the new elections?
I think that sort of traditionally you have Republicans who are more pro-Second Amendment and pro-self-defense, and folks maybe on the other side of the aisle don't like guns as much and want to rely on bigger government to come in
Right.
and maybe save the day. I haven't heard much of it on a national level. Certainly in Indiana, the Second Amendment, self-defense, all of those issues are near and dear to the hearts of Hoosiers, and I'm a strong supporter of that. And look, the government has its place, and it needs to do certain vital things to preserve, protect the security and liberty of its citizens. But we have a responsibility, a moral, ethical duty to be our own champions as well.
Yeah, that's a great ending. Thank you so much for your time today. This is Cindy Speaker for Indiana Law TV.